What's going on, everybody? I'm Jory Goodman, the Time Teller. So guys, I'm very excited for this installment of Micro Brand Monday in particular because I recently received a package from a company called The 5th. And from everything I can see online, they seem to be what I would consider a fashion watch company. And they assured me that in this package is their very first automatic watch. So I'm very interested to see if they pulled it off and if they are, kind of making their way into actual watchmaking. We will see. We got to cut this open and find out. So without further ado, it is 12:36 p.m. Let's get down to business. Alright guys, and I think you just saw I got a letter. It says, "Thank you. We hope you love your Swiss-made auto, Jory. Looking forward to seeing your YouTube video, The 5th," with a smiley face. Well, thank you, The 5th, for sponsoring this episode and making it possible by sending me a watch to review. So let's go ahead. I think, is this taped over? Well, we're gonna put that big knife away. Let's use this trapper knife. Why not? Perfect. I got more knives in here than a steakhouse. I'll tell you what. Let's go take a look. Got a little card. It says, "Thank you. Congratulations on securing your limited edition." Yeah, you guys know I'm not a big fan of limited editions. "On your limited edition Swiss-made automatic watch, this exquisite piece has been crafted for you to enjoy every day until you pass it down to its next custodian. Just like Patek Philippe, you never really ever own one. The bank does." It's a little joke. "To ensure the longevity of your watch, please follow the specific care instructions at The 5th, blah, 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 blah." So I have a feeling, just based upon the information on that card, this is probably, catering to people who may not have much experience with mechanical watches or anything but quartz watches. So that's, it's nice that they have that information to check out how to care for a mechanical watch. But, I think people make it more complicated than it has to be, no pun intended, watch complications. I think if you're just generally smart about owning your watch and you're not like dunking it in water and banging it around, I think your watch will be fine. All right. So, moment of truth. Let's take a look at the packaging. Kind of this matte gray, almost slate color. I really like this kind of printed The 5th. It's nice and shiny. And then there's a V for the Roman numeral 5, I would assume, unless it stands for vendetta, which I don't think it does. Probably, 5. All right, here we go. Oops. Oh, ruined that little climax there. Heard that before. Watches worth waiting for. Well, let's find out. All right, let's get up close here. Yeah, here it is, The 5th's first automatic. It's not running just yet. I haven't really, shaken up the box enough. Let's go ahead and remove this protective plastic. Oh yeah, you freaks out there love that. The first thing I notice is that kind of really, really deep, almost sunburst blue dial. Definite sunburst pattern. You can see it playing with the light there. And then it has a little bit of a crosshair. That's not uncommon with vintage watches. A little bit of an interesting design choice there. Let's go ahead and see if we can get this baby running. First, although it is an automatic, and you can see that it says automatic down there, let's see if it hand winds. Sounds like it does. Oh, yep. And the second hand is moving. Very, very good. So upon inspecting the watch a little further, we can see a display case back, and I think there's actually some more protection back here. Guys, I'm so sick of protection. I'm just, not a big fan. Never fun having to wear protection. We can see Nicely, somewhat decorated rotor, nothing super duper special. Again, it's not a highly complicated watch, but let's go ahead and talk about the movement that the 5th is using for their very first automatic watch. So many of you will be happy to learn that although the 5th may have been seen as more of a fashion watch company, they are using a true Swiss-made automatic. This is a 26 jewel STP-111 automatic, so it should hack and hand wind. We kind of tested that hand winding already at the beginning of this review, but we've seen STP-111s a lot on this channel, actually. I think the most recent one was the Formex. The Formex used an STP-1 movement, and yeah, very good. Pretty much workhorse movement, no issues there. Cost effective for the companies, but hey, it is a way for them to offer, you know, fairly affordable, true Swiss-made automatic. So we can see the second hand sweeping away very, very smoothly. We can see a date complication over by the 3 o'clock. We're gonna get up close to that and inspect it in a moment because, as you know, the date complication is my favorite complication a watch can have, but I'm kind of, I don't know, a bit of a date complication snob. In my opinion, it's the most important complication, but the easiest complication to mess up. So let's go ahead and see if the watch hacks as it should. Boom, perfect. You know what? Let's test the crown setting and function. You know what? The two crown settings are not as tactile as I'd like, but it's not super sloppy. I wish it was just a little bit more apparent and discernible, but not the worst in the world. That should be the date, and that should be the time. Let's see. There we go. Yep. So obviously the first setting, first position will be the date, and then the next one should be the time. Very, very good. Yeah, so the crown setting and function, not the most tactile, not the most pleasant and intuitive, but by far not the worst. Let's go ahead and inspect that date complication. Okay, so as we hone in on this date window, I do have a few remarks. First up, everything looks centered, all right? There's nothing worse than having a date wheel that's kind of obscured by the date window, so thankfully everything is prim and proper from what I can see on this watch in front of me. The next remark is a bit of a, I don't know, personal preference. When I look at this watch and its dial, this date window, I feel like should have had a border, right? I don't think it needs to be a huge eyesore of a border, but I think a simple border around that rectangular date window would kind of make it look a little bit more polished and less of an afterthought. I really do appreciate that this watch does have a date complication because, again, for an everyday, somewhat dressy watch, there's nothing better than having that date complication there. But with the way this date window is on this dial, I think a very simple border around that, you know, rectangular frame, it would just make it that much more polished and, again, a little bit more deliberate of a look. But what do you guys think? Leave me a comment. All right, and because I know this is very important to some people out there, oh, the very highly coveted Swiss-made signage bordering that 6 o'clock index. Not bad for a company's first automatic watch to also be Swiss-made. Now, one thing I really do like about this watch, and you can see it here on this shot, very, very dynamic as it plays with the light. You know, overall, it's a fairly simple watch in design, and simplicity doesn't necessarily equal, you know, a boring look. Like, just because a watch is simple doesn't necessarily mean it has to be boring. This is not a highly complex watch when you look at it. There's not a whole lot going on the dial. It's not super duper busy, but you can see if it's done properly, it looks gorgeous. And honestly, I think this is a very handsome watch, especially when you look at the sharp indexes and down by these lower lugs here, you can see the finishing very, very sharp. So indexes, deep sunburst dial, just pops. looks great. And guys, we can't do a Microbrand Monday episode without talking about the watchmaker's logo, so we're gonna talk about the 5th. Now, there's nothing truly offensive about it, okay? I don't look at it and think, oh my god, this is repulsive. But what I do think is it's fashion watchy. This is a very fashion watch type logo and font, and let's be clear, this is a fashion watch company. Okay, so I can't really hold that against them. They're not pretending to be anything but that. But what they are doing is they're offering an automatic watch. So this is a fashion watch company that's now offering kind of a more quote-unquote legit watch. And I'm impressed by that, and I appreciate that they want me to be one of the first people reviewing it. But yeah, when we talk about the logo, it's definitely fashion watchy, and I don't quite understand why. It's just the 5th, but somehow the way it's presented, it's just the archetype of a fashion watch brand. You know, take that as you will. So far, we have gone close up to the watch. We've talked about the date complication, the movement, the fact that it is Swiss made, and yes, of course, it does present itself with its kind of more fashion watchy logo. But let's take a look at the specs, because ultimately, at the end of the episode, when we talk about the price, we got to know what this watch is actually offering us. So the case is, stainless steel, no precious metal here. They do have a variant that has PVD coating, I think all around, and then they have a really cool green dial that has PVD gold on the bezel, so it's kind of like a two-tone thing. I thought that looked pretty nice, but this is just straight up stainless steel. We spoke about how the lugs have this really sharp brushed finish, and the bezel here has a much more mirrored, polished finish. I actually think it's very dynamic, and I really like the way they pulled that off. The crown also very, very polished, and it is signed with that Roman numeral 5. We're going to measure it in a moment, so we're going to talk about those metrics in a bit. We mentioned the movement, 26 jewel Swiss made automatic by STP 111. I should say it's an STP movement, but it's an STP 111. And what's interesting, although it does not have a threaded crown, it does have a 100 meter water resistance rating. So when you factor in that date complication and the fact that it has a 100 meter water resistance rating, you really don't have to baby this watch all that much. Another plus for this watch, well, it has a sapphire crystal. So again, if you were to wear this watch as an everyday kind of dressy piece, again, you don't have to worry about scuffing it up, scratching up that crystal. Fairly resilient for kind of a more dressy piece. So guys, honestly, this is my first experience with any watch from the 5th, but overall I am very impressed with the finishing quality, but they're not going to get off that easily, because there's one thing I really do want to inspect, and we're actually looking at one right now, the case back screws. Okay, a lot of companies kind of skimp out on the finishing when it comes to their screw heads, and I might be a little bit of a psycho, but it bothers me to no end. It kills me when there's a watch with decent overall finishing and then the screw heads are just mangled and just butchered. So this one looks pretty good. No issue there. Let's look at this. Again, no real issue. We can see a quick release over here on the strap. We'll talk about that in a moment. Okay, this one, let's flip the watch around. Bumped the camera a little bit there, my bad. Okay, I thought this one was maybe a bit thrashed, but this, acceptable. Okay, this one is the roughest out of all 4, but it's not terrible. Yeah, it's a little bit, like, I would not say that this is mangled. I've seen much, much worse. Let's see the movement. This screw here has a bit of an imperfection. People are gonna roast me for inspecting the screw heads, but guys, yeah, see, a little bit of an imperfection right there on the right-hand side of that screw head. Guys, I'm honestly very impressed. This is the first time I'm looking at a watch from this watchmaker. This is their first automatic piece, and so far it seems like they've crushed it. Okay, now comes the time that we must break out my digital calipers and measure the watch. Oh, the watchmakers are trembling in their seats. Yep, that's right. That's right. Be scared. Be scared. 39.9 millimeters in diameter at its widest point. Let's go ahead and see the lug to lug, which of course is the most important measurement when we're talking about how much real estate a watch will take up on your wrist. 45.5 millimeter lug to lug. Let's take a look at the thickness. 10.4 millimeters thick. Overall, very reasonable sizing and well within that sweet spot, that kind of 40 millimeter and below sweet spot. I think this is going to be a very versatile watch as far as what sized wrists this watch will work with. So I think that, yeah, I think this is going to be very, very wearable on my 7.5-inch wrist, but we won't know until we find out. So let's take off this Yema speed graph. Special thanks to Yema for giving me this watch. And we'll put on this, the 5th automatic. And I've smudged up this crystal. Let's clean that up a bit. Alrighty, here it is, the 5th's automatic watch on my wrist for the first time ever. Never even heard of this company before they wrote to me. So, yeah, it wears very nicely. The lugs don't encompass my entire wrist because in my opinion, I don't know, that's not really a great look. I think that if you have smaller wrists than me, you can totally pull this off. And I think if you have a bit bigger wrists than myself, you can absolutely pull this off. Now, what I will say, the strap feels kind of stiff and almost cardboardy. Gotta be honest with you, I think they kind of saved some money there using this not amazing strap. It's, yeah, very stiff. You can kind of hear it. It's not the most supple. Thankfully though, there's quick release spring bars, so if you do get this watch, you can absolutely go ahead and change that strap out immediately with no effort at all. So I would recommend doing that. Like the first time you take it out of the box, just immediately and throw these out. Okay, guys, so next up, because I think I'm seeing a little bit of lume on this watch, it's time to test it out. Let's burn it up a little bit with this torch, because my viewers in the UK call this a torch, a battery operated torch. I'll just call it a flashy flash. All right, not bad. It's not like super vibrant. What I will say is the areas that have lume, I mean, it's not a ton of it. So more of what I would consider to be kind of like my Hamilton Jazzmaster Open Heart was a dress watch that had 2 little tiny streaks of lume, and it made me chuckle that it was even there. So will this help if you're in a dim area and I don't know, maybe the dark corner of a ballroom? Perhaps, but is this gonna like shine? No, not really. So I suppose that it's nice that it's here, but it's not terribly vibrant, yeah. But not the worst. So after spending some time with this watch from the 5th, what do I think of it? Well, we have to be totally honest and we have to kind of take everything into account. So first up, it is what I would consider to be a fashion watchmaker, okay? That doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing though, if we're able to look at each watch specifically. This watch, again, excluding any of their other quartz pieces that I don't know anything about, this watch, incredibly impressive in my opinion. Here's why. Sub 40 millimeter, kind of everyday dress watch, incredibly sharp, incredibly clean. The case finishing with that kind of dual finishing, the brushed sharp lugs and then the polished bezel, the very, very sharp polished handset, the incredibly sharp applied indexes. Looks very nice. 100 meter water resistance rating, sapphire crystal, hacking, hand wind, and a 26 joule automatic movement that is Swiss made. This is a Swiss made watch, guys. Taking all of this into account, we have to add one more facet of this watch into the equation before I kind of give you my conclusion. 450 bucks. Okay, 450 bucks for all of this, under $500 for a really nice Swiss made automatic with a date complication. I don't think I brought that up. I think that is very, very reasonable. Okay, I'm not going to say, oh, it's an absolute steal. You have to go out and get this right now. What are you doing? Why are you watching this? Go out and order it. No, I'm not going to say that about any watch. I think that this is an incredible option if you're in the market for a sharp, elegant, everyday piece. Are there watches that are much more dressy than this? Yeah, absolutely. Are there watches that are much more rugged than this? Yes, of course. But if you're looking for a watch that's kind of a bit business casual, something that you can wear in the office, also out to dinner, also with jeans and a t-shirt, I think this is a great watch that you won't have to baby. Again, with it having a sapphire crystal and a 100-meter water resistance rating, it can handle pretty much whatever you're going to throw at it day to day. And I'm very, very impressed that this is the first automatic that this company is coming out with, because again, when people try new things, it's very easy for them to kind of, I don't know, try to figure out their footing for a bit. And yeah, so this is my first time ever even hearing of a watch from the 5th, and the fact that this is their first automatic, I give it 2 thumbs up, definitely. The one critique I have, actually I have 2 critiques, is the crown, very, very slippery when I go to hand wind it. And again, the crown setting and function, I don't want to say it was sloppy, but it was definitely not as tactile as I'd like. And then the next critique is that I think the date window, I think it could have suited a bit of a border, a bit of a frame. It would have looked very, very nice with that. But you know, different strokes for different folks. But guys, for $450, what do you think of that? Leave me that comment and I'll talk to you there. All right, guys. Well, special thanks to the 5th again for making this review possible, for sending me this watch and sponsoring this episode. We can't do any of these Microbrand Monday episodes without the help from these businesses. Marnie over at the 5th, super duper nice person to interact with, and I have a feeling they're just great people over there because again, they made this whole review process very, very simple. They just sent me the watch, they made it bing, bang, boom, very easy, and they wrote me a really nice note. So really nice to hear of these watchmakers and these companies being actual nice, decent people. You don't get that everywhere. So guys, thank you again to my channel members. We can't do any of the content without my certified T3 bots. If you want to support the channel, if you want to get 6 pieces of content a week plus access to that members only Discord chat where we do a live chat every Wednesday night, then yeah, click that join button next to the subscribe button. It's essentially YouTube's Patreon, $4.99 a month, and you support the channel directly. And again, guys, thank you to the viewer, you watching this right now. We can't do literally anything without the people watching the content, because what's an episode without a viewer? Thank you guys. So please check out all the affiliate links in the description below. Check out my personal website, www.thetimetellershop.com, and check out, you know, consider. May I urge you to consider subscribing. Like, comment, subscribe, share this with everyone you know. I'm Jory Goodman, the Time Teller, and always remember, I didn't invent time. I just tell it.